today's video is going to be, I have some tea, so grab a cup of tea, sit back, relax, enjoy it. So this video is what would happen if TNS West and TNS East didn't merge. They would have to merge at some point to have an A troop, so this is what would happen if they didn't merge at the time they did. The plot starts at Season 5, Episode 13, Civil War, everything before that would be the same. The regionals qualifier video would be cancelled because Miss Kate said that nobody's going to regionals until this fighting ends because she's tired of it. Kate would then call Emily and Michelle into her office and they would have a conversation. After that, they would head into the locker room. Zara, Josh and Jackie would be talking about it, and Josh and Zara would blame Noah for it, and Noah would walk into the locker room and would say to Jackie, "Do you want to grab a juice?" And then Zara and Josh, he would ask Zara and Josh, "What are you talking about?" And they would say, "Isn't it disappointing that regionals has been cancelled?" Jackie would then say, "I have homework to do." So Noah then would wonder what is going on. Noah would then go sit in the juice bar and Heath would be working and see Noah. Heather, would be working and would see Noah and go and ask him, "Is he okay?" And Noah would say, "What is going on?" And Heather would say, "TNS are mad and they're blaming you for regionals being cancelled." Said, "What you did for TNS West was appreciated." Noah said, "Thank you, I knew I made the right choice." Kristen walked into the juice bar and says to Heather, "Can I get a juice?" So they gets him a juice and he says, "Let's go to Studio A and dance." Noah goes, "That's a great idea." So Kingston, Noah and Heather go to Studio A. Lola walks into studio and asks what's going on. Although regionals is cancelled, Lola goes and joins in. So they dance in Studio A. Emily and Michelle have an argument and say the two studios are not allowed to talk to each other. And they come out and say see the two studios together, so they say, "What do you think you're doing?" And they are confused and they say, "Nothing." And Emily and Michelle say the two studios are not allowed to talk to each other. Michelle stays in the studio and dances solo. End of episode. So 14 Noah would still do his solo, nobody would walk in. Skylar would approach Jackie. Jackie wonders about telling Noah, but she realises it's better to not tell Noah because the two studios are not even allowed to talk to each other. So she leaves and goes to Gemini. Josh decides to go up north. There are dance studios up north that go to competitions. Amy doesn't go to Gemini. End of episode. Episode 15, Emily and Michelle would be asked by Miss Kate to come down to Studio 1. Not be sure what's going on, and Miss Kate wants to get to the bottom of what is going on. So Michelle would have to share what her issues are, and then Emily would do the same. Noah and Michelle would say, "Do you want to rehearse?" So they rehearse. Because there's no certain about regionals, they go look for other opportunities. End of episode. Next episode, A Troop decide to practice some technique drills together, and they would wonder where Rochelle and Noah are. Miss Kate would say Noah and Rochelle, Zara and Josh have all left. The team would be shocked. Jackie still has no idea. But Gemini, West and Daniel have a chat about stuff. A Troop rehearse, would finish, and end of episode. The next episode, Miss Kate would tell A Troop Emily and Michelle are fired and they would have a new studio head, Miss Angela. Miss Angela would do a rehearsal. Seeing what everybody could do, Miss Angela would be horrible to Piper about not being able to do an aerial. Everyone would be in the studio one talking and saying Miss Andrew's bad. Heather decides to leave and go to college. A Troop would be working on a dance and they are working towards regionals. Piper also leaves as well after the episode. Next episode would be a week later. A Troop would be rehearsing for regionals and Miss Kate would come in and see the dance and she would say it's great. She would then go into her office and she would look in. She would like the dance, but she would seem sad, and the team in and wondered what she's sad about, and said about how she has not been able to get the success without Miss Angela, and she wishes it could be her that has the success of A Troop. She is basically, by this point, a bit of a mess about her reputation being ruined. Michelle and Noah would walk in and see Kate sat there upset, not really sure why, and Noah and Rochelle would ask her, would she like to see their duet? We did at the audition. Kate would say, what is going on? Are you staying or going? And they say they're waiting to hear back from the audition. How it all went and stuff, so Miss Kate says, now I'm ready. They're about to head down to Studio 1 because they're off of A Troop. And Miss Kate would decide to kick Miss Angela's rehearsal down to Studio 1 and they would go and do it in Studio A. They would say in their talking heads that they thought the audition went well, but they really can't tell whether they got in or not. Kate watches and she cries, so they come over and hug her. The White Wall intro would begin and then finish. And after that, we see everybody come in and wonder if Noah and Rochelle are staying or going. And Miss Kate explains it all to everybody in Studio A. Miss Kate decides she's making one A Troop. Everyone is going to have compulsory hip-hop and technique classes to attend. And making one A Troop. Instead of Amy and Piper bringing TNS East and TNS West together, it's Kate. Kate is deciding what she needed to do. Kate definitely needed to have more scenes in season 5, and this should have been her. Everyone says, who is going to be studio head, Miss Angela or herself? And Miss Kate decides, I'm going to be studio head. And gets rid of Miss Angela, so A Troop are happy to the point where they just run and hug her. So after Piper finds out Miss Angela's gone, she comes back. Like I said, there'll be compulsory classes. Rochelle and Noah would find out about their audition and they didn't get anything, so Miss Kate asked them to be co-captains because they really remotivated her and really pushed her to make the changes she needed to make the next step a success. Piper would be a bit sad, but she would understand. She's sensible and mature about it and realises what she actually needs to do. Amy asks about what are we working towards? Are we going to, if we're not going to regionals? Miss Kate says we are going to regionals and explains that we are going to go to regionals. We're going to be a success at regionals. We just need to work hard and then we'll be that success that TNS once was. Would decide to stay at TNS even though she got into Gemini. Kate would ask Kingston if he'd like to help with the video production since he was a YouTuber. So I feel like it's a nice link with Kingston off-season on YouTube being a self-taught dancer. Kate would say their song is Can't Stop the Fire and then start choreographing. Ozzy would say, I have an idea. I think the theme for the video should be the story of the studio and everyone agrees. So then they would have the battle section. Then they'd have at the beginning, then they'd have point solo, then the contemporary section, then Henry, Noah, Jackie section, and then end of the video. Few scenes of rehearsing, which we saw in season 5, which was why it's one of my favourite seasons. Like, I didn't think I liked season 5, I actually do like it quite a lot. Then they'd show Miss Kate their dance, and Miss Kate would say who came up with the idea, and they would say Ozzy, and Miss Kate would say, what is your idea, Ozzy, and Ozzy would explain the idea. Miss Kate thinks it's such a great idea. Episodes that follow, Miss Kate asks the team, does anybody know any good shoot locations? And Ozzy said, my uncle has a theatre, and Kate says that is great, so Ozzy's in charge of looking for the theatre, booking the theatre. So Ozzy books the theatre, and as he booked it for the wrong day, he booked it for Sunday instead of Saturday. Kingston finds him in the juice bar and asks him if he is okay, and he says he booked the theatre for the wrong day. Kingston asks him, how did you manage to do that? And Ozzy says, Sunday, Saturday, I got mixed up. So Kingston agrees to help him because he knows it's what's best for the team, and he knows that Ozzy needs his help, so they do that. They book another theatre, which apparently is better, which I actually do think it was a good theatre choice, so I liked the theatre. Rochelle would get the solo even though her hip is worsening. She would try and hide it because she's now got dance captain. She's now wanting to keep dance captain. She wants to be seen as a good dance captain. Piper would be rehearsing a lot to make her mark as a dancer. Make sure she's as good at the choreo to the best of her ability. She's getting good. She's attending all classes. Practicing outside of classes, really getting good at the choreography. Rochelle and Lola scenes would happen all the same because Lola's really worried about her. Heather would find Lola down and Heather would go tell Michelle. Michelle says to Miss Kate, Lola's injured. Lola gets kicked off the dance. So Lola gets told by Rochelle to get a doctor's note to cover for the fact that she's injured. And so Lola can be put back on the dance. Rochelle says that's great that Lola's back on the dance. They can now dance in the video together. Lola's not very happy about that because Lola says, I could have spent all day practicing my parts, but instead I wasted precious rehearsals. I'm getting that stupid note just so I could cover for you. And Rochelle would say everything worked out fine, and Lola would say everything's not fine. You're injured. You can barely walk. Lola would be still so worried by the end of the episode that Rochelle's gonna dance and she's done everything else, like she's tried everything else. So she would snap Rochelle's point shoes because she's trying to save Rochelle from causing permanent injury, so she snapped her point shoes. The final episode of the season would be No Point of Return as the title. One would be rehearsing, getting ready for the video. Noah and Jackie would be practicing. Noah would be just working on the choreography because Jackie's obviously not there. Jill goes into the locker room, finds out someone's broke the shank, and she wonders who it is. Because she can't blame Zara because Zara's not there, so she finds... Lola finds her waiting to talk to Miss Kate about the shoe thing. Waiting to talk to Emily about the shoe and before the video shoot. So, sorry I just had this stretch. And Lola would say, I did it, I broke the shank, and Rochelle would be shocked. And Lola would explain herself. Lola would say, I didn't know what else to do. It's either you don't dance this one time or you don't dance for the rest of your life. And Rochelle and Lola would no longer be friends. Then Rochelle would be rehearsing and Daniel would ask, why weren't you wearing your ballet shoes? Rochelle would say, the shanks are broken. Daniel would say, did it break? And Rochelle would say, I don't know. He'd get the duct tape and come out, and Rochelle find out Rochelle's injured because of the snapping sound. Rochelle would deny it. He'd go tell Emily, and Emily would be like, how do we know if Rochelle's injured or not? Because she hasn't told us, and you heard a snapping sound. I really don't know. So they don't take Noah off the dance, Rochelle off the dance, I mean. They go to the venue, they film the video, and then they'd clear up. Miss Kate would find out Rochelle's in the hospital, and Miss Kate would call Daniel West and Michelle and Emily in, and Miss Kate would fire them, but actually they're already. Miss Kate would fire them because they get their roles back, but they're still not responsible.